Hi everyone, I'm here with Luis De Leon, who teaches AP Language at Yes Prep High School.
Hi.
Okay. So Luis, would you mind sharing some background with us over how you acquired your two languages?
Yeah, so I was born in Mexico. My parents are Mexican immigrants. I grew up in Houston, Texas, so my first language is Spanish. I grew up speaking Spanish at home with my mom and dad. Um, I always say that I think I started learning English from watching TV. I remember watching Barney on like PBS and singing the song, the Barney song, even though I didn't know what the song was saying. I would be like, "I love you." Like I would sing it, but I didn't know what it was saying. So I think like my English education started by watching TV, and then I know that I was in bilingual classes for sure in pre-K, kindergarten, maybe even first grade. So somewhere along those years, I started to learn English. I want to say that I started to learn how to read in Spanish 1st, and I think by like first or second grade, somewhere in there, I made the transition to English. And I was in bilingual classes up until the end of third grade. In fourth grade, I was in full English. I do feel like I speak English better than Spanish. Spanish is more like a home language for me, and English is my public academic language.
Okay. So Luis, do you currently have any ELL students in your classroom?
Yes, I do. I have about this year in my senior class, out of about 103 of them, we have 6 or 7 that are in the TELPAS, like English Language Learner program.
Okay, so how do you approach this? Do you approach this with motivation, or is it something that you kind of just have to work out throughout the year?
When you say approach, like how do I approach teaching them?
Yes, how do you approach, especially in the subject?
Yeah. So our school has a literacy specialist who makes us aware of who the ELL students are, and makes us aware of what accommodations we provide for them, both assessment accommodations, so tests and assignments, and instructional, like in the moment accommodations. So they provide all of those accommodations for us. That way we're able to internalize them, and in our lesson plans we can have a space for us to address those needs for the students. And they vary. Primarily, it's a lot of they have access to bilingual dictionaries. With them, a lot of we call them sentence stems. So especially when it comes to writing, I find that a lot of my ELLs find sentence stems helpful. Like I start out a sentence and then they just finish it, and that kind of gets them rolling with like writing paragraphs and topic sentences and thesis statements and things like that. And sometimes I'll provide that verbally, but usually it's written already on a handout.
So, what do you see most often among your ELLs regarding their willingness to learn?
I think one thing that I do see in ELLs is because, especially when they're seniors and they've been struggling with language acquisition their entire life or grappling with it, I feel like there is this sort of they associate the work that comes with it. They definitely see it as more work. I think because either they're translating things or they're trying to figure out what specific phrases or words mean. There's words that they might not understand, or that aren't part of their vocabulary yet. So it's not that they're not willing to work. It's that sometimes that extra lift, that load, I think makes it just adds work to them, and I think it makes it harder to find motivation sometimes. But they definitely have the willingness and the hunger to learn and get better. Yeah.
So when you're doing your lesson planning, do you address any ELO modifications?
Yes, I do. I have a section for both assessment modifications. So when I provide something that's written, or if I ask them to write something, I have tools that teacher moves that I plan out, or even an instruction, either while I'm teaching, when I'm doing checking for understanding, or during group work, when they're working in their tables like with each other. I go in, I always make sure that I check in with them, and I kind of get a sense for how much they're like understanding, either if we're reading something or if we're writing something. A lot of like defining extra terms beforehand. Like when I'm going over a passage before I teach it, and I know like some of my ELLs will struggle with this. It's not just ELLs, even like general population students will struggle with them. I make sure that I predefine them in class before we start the reading, and it's simple, like show a quick picture of what something is, or that way like they have that, they're prepared with that, so that when they read it, those gaps are filled in.
So Luis, I know you've taught different grade levels. So with various age gaps, do you think there is any difference in the way that students are able to learn and transition into the language?
It's a good question. Yeah, so before teaching seniors, I taught 6th and 7th graders for like 5 years. I would say that younger students are not as self-conscious yet, so they're more willing to take risks. When they mess up, they bounce back right away. They're a little bit more eager, especially with the supportive like teacher in a supportive classroom. They're eager, and like because they're not as aware of like they're just not as self-aware. Whereas the older students, I think, like are more aware. They don't want to be embarrassed, so it takes a little bit of more like work in that sense. Accommodations stay the same. The text and the level of the work changes, but and I think the age does affect a little bit like how they approach the work, like, on a personal level. Alright. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So thank you for doing this interview, and I hope everyone enjoys this video and the content.
Yay! Bye!